If you were here yesterday morning, you'll know I tried hitting a glass. I tried hitting a glass yesterday morning with a teaspoon, and I thought I did it quite gently. Obviously, the glass shattered into several pieces in my hand. Nonetheless, it's a sign of a good audience that it takes a few dings to get everyone to stop. Loads of great answers. Let's have a hand going up. Who's got a great answer on strategy? Yeah. Okay, come on. We can't start the panel until somebody says something. Don't go to an auction, because I don't know if you were scratching your head there or if you raised your hand. No, okay. Go ahead, fantastic. I'm going to run down and I'll repeat your answer. Go on. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought I had a mic.
I don't, I just have me.
No, we both talked about working in L&D
Yep.
in the field, like for me it's in the newsroom. And then of course you need to talk with the bosses.
Yep.
And understand what they know that they need.
Yep.
But also understand the strategy. Because they often don't know what they actually need.
You've really encapsulated that really well. I love that. Talk to people.
Yes.
Find out what they say they want, and try to understand what they actually need, because they're not always the same thing.
Exactly.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Great. Anybody else? I mean, that's a really good answer. Any other answers? No? You're desperate to hear. Go on, quickly. Integrate learning with other HR processes, such as? Recruiting. Yeah. And also internal recruitment. I do hope somebody on the panel is going to talk about integrating learning with those processes. Yes, and what I like about that is the idea that learning doesn't stand alone. If it's going to be strategic, it needs to be part of the business processes altogether. Fantastic. And this, by the way, you are my favorite part of the audience, because you've had all the hand raising so far. These people over here, nothing. Now, anybody got an arm going up? Oh, I've embarrassed everybody now. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Go on.
Let me do some impact mapping to align the business goals with the learning initiatives.
Align business goals with initiatives. How?
Impact mapping to determine the change in behavior
Okay.
that results in the change of the...
You do something, you see, did you have an effect on the metrics? Did you have an impact? And it's also really important to say, well, we succeeded, or maybe we didn't succeed and we need to change. So we prove and we improve as a result of doing the mapping. Love it, fantastic. I was only, look, there we go, all the hands coming up now. Go on, very quickly. Share inspiring examples. Yeah, I mean, all over, with the stakeholders, with everybody, managers, employees, and also the learning and development team. I think inspiration is underrated. I love this combination of things. We've got the data, and we've got the inspiration, if you like, the head and the heart together. I think that's a really important combination. Thank you. All right, that's probably enough from Don Taylor. I'm going to invite our panel onto the stage. So just wait 1 second, I'll do my big entrance, and then you can walk on stage and be applauded. Our panel, it's a really good cross-section. I'm really delighted to have them here. We've got Lucas Lewandowski, who is the DACH area manager for Coursera. He's going to be starting off looking at the big picture, a bit of research. What does that tell us about everything? And we've got Meredith Wellard, who is the VP Group for Talent Acquisition, Learning and Growth at Deutsche Post DHL. And finally, Anke Iodake from Citi, who is the, correct me if I'm wrong, Future of Work Global Practice. Correct. Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody, your panel. We'll start off with Lucas, going to give us the big picture, talking about research from Coursera and from the World Economic Forum, and real experience about how we get that link between strategy and action to make sure we have the impact. Lucas.
Thank you, Don. You are a tough act to follow. Let me just tell you that. Who thinks that Don should have his own TV show? I do. Yeah, thank you. All right, let's get going. Maybe first of all, how many in this room know Coursera? Hands up. Oh, good, good, good. I could now skip my first couple of slides, but I'm still going to do a quick intro, because it's just what I do. So Coursera was founded 10 years ago by two Stanford professors, Andrew Ng and Daphne Koller. And their idea was to grant universal access to people to world-class learning. That was the idea. And what started off quite small 10 years ago has become a sizable business these days. And this is what Coursera looks like today. So it started sort of on the bottom left with educators, right? It was them who put courses online for people to enjoy. Quickly, there was a number like 5 or 6 universities who put courses online. Today, we have over 170 university partners and 80 industry partners who we get our courses from. So this is, this is quite important. A quite important aspect to know about Coursera is that we don't have Coursera content on the platform. We have content from leading universities and industry partners. So with this content, we needed learners. So we went out into the field and got consumer learners all over the world. And that number grew over time. And at some point, companies came to us and said, well, we would need some content for our learners. And that's how sort of that bottom right bubble, the institutions, came into being. It started with businesses. These days, we have over 3,000 customers worldwide who basically use our solutions, learning solutions for their employees. Shortly after, we were approached. I think the first one was the government of Abu Dhabi, who wanted to use our learning solutions as well, and that is how our governmental client practice came into being. And then finally, and I think the big push came sort of during COVID, we made our content available to universities as well as they are closing their campuses, and that's how we started the Coursera for Campus initiative. So these days we have over 110 million learners, and of course that is a lot of data. So we analyze the data, we know what people want to study, what the important skills are these days. And this is just a short overview over the customers we have. Maybe more excitingly is on the left-hand side the use cases, because they are very, very different. Some are more IT-driven or data-driven. Some customers use us for leadership development, but definitely there's a large variety of use cases out there that we can serve. So on to our topic today. The last few years, we did see an unprecedented disruption. And automation was there before, and then along came COVID, and COVID just sped up everything incredibly. I'm not going to get into COVID that much. I mean, we've all seen it, we've been there. But I do want to talk about automation, because what will happen, and these are numbers not by Coursera, these are numbers from the World Economic Forum. So they are predicting that 85 million jobs will be displaced in the next 3 years. That's not a long time, folks, right? And also, and even more importantly, I think, they're saying that 40% of not just any, but core skills will also change in the next 3 years. So basically, we're onto a change journey here, where things will change dramatically over the next few years. And yeah, again, I'm not talking about working remotely. That was, of course, because of COVID. And maybe the least surprising fact is the last one. Digitalization will be there, will be drastically going forward. So 84% of companies are working on their digital processes. So what does that mean? Number one, there will be a lot of new jobs created, and we're already seeing that. I just said 85 million will be displaced, but other jobs will be created. So on the left-hand side, you'll see top jobs in demand today. Again, this is from the World Economic Forum. But also what you see on the right-hand side, and this comes from Microsoft, is that, again, within the next 3 years, about 190 million, no, sorry, it's 150 million new jobs will be created in the digital field. So this is the direction we're heading. And now we should have a look at what we're going to do about this. And by the way, we can see this at Coursera as well. These numbers actually come from our platform. So, and this is Germany only, but I'm pretty sure that, that Europe will generate similar numbers. So if you look at all the courses that are being taken on Coursera, on the Coursera platform, these are the subdomains that are being used the most. So as you see, data analysis, machine learning, software development, a lot of IT and data topics. Then, of course, you have also the more general topics like personal development or leadership, but roughly half of the courses taken are from the tech and data field. So when we work with institutions, whether it's companies or universities, mostly companies in this case, what do we do? Basically, we help with 3 different things. Number 1 is attraction, right? Everybody is hiring these days for certain roles. The job market is empty. It's very difficult to hire. But talking to some of our customers, for example, Novartis, they said the number 1 reason for new employees to join Novartis is actually their learning solutions that they have, the development opportunities that they are offering. So by offering good development opportunities, you are attracting talent because that's frankly what they expect these days. And then once you have these talent on board, they want to develop. They see the need to develop. As we've seen, the skills are rapidly changing. So, you know, especially the talent that you want to keep, they want to keep progressing. And by offering learning solutions, you have a better chance of keeping the people that you want to keep. And then finally, and this is a use case that is now finally growing, but it's still relatively small compared to the others, because what we're also seeing is the need for reskilling, right? As you've seen, 85 million jobs will be replaced or displaced, so people will need to shift into different roles. And that's why reskilling is so important, and I think it's a use case that we need to keep in mind. And what I want to talk about now is skills-first training, right? What we are seeing these days in the market is basically this. This is the picture of how institutions view their learning programs. We cluster them into 3 different kinds. What we see a lot still is open learning. What does that mean? It usually starts with one phrase that I hear a lot. We want to establish a culture of e-learning. And then a catalog is being purchased, put on a platform for people to enjoy. What usually happens then is there is a big bang, it goes live, everyone's excited, everybody starts learning. Yeah, you know what's going to happen. I think what was the phrase you used? Drowning in a sea of content or something like that, yeah. And that's exactly what happens. Usually after a year, you'll see 10% still being very intrinsically motivated, still using the solution, and 90% sort of dozed off and didn't find it relevant, didn't know why they were supposed to do something, so they stopped using it. Because they sort of went, and you know, I'm going to pick up the title of our presentation today, they went into their daily grind and sort of forgot about the learning. And then there is sort of the next evolution is guided learning. In guided learning, you look at certain positions and roles, and maybe you have the IT people or the managers, and then you provide suggestions of what they should study. You know, certain courses that they should take. And usually what's measured then is learning hours and completion of courses. Now that's not bad, and it works for many, and I would probably say that most companies are somewhere there. But we think it can get better, and that's the third evolution in my presentation, and that's skills-first learning. Why do I think it's better? Is because this is how you become future-proof. You have to look at the skills that you have in your company today. You have to look at the skills that will be needed in the future to stay in business, to stay successful, and then you're going to have your learners learn these new skills. And it's a forward-looking method, if you want. If you look at, I have a degree that I got years and years ago. That's in the past. But the skills that I can acquire and will be hopefully able to acquire, that's looking forward. That's where I want to be in the future. That's sort of the new me in the future. So that's why I think skills first is the way forward. And we've actually asked our learners and the administrators on our platform, what would they like to have measured? And this is the answers that we got. So both the learners and administrators were quite open about the skills developed are what they would like to have measured versus the courses completed. And this is my last slide. So how do you go about this? This is sort of the strategy to have a meaningful learning program. I think it always starts with a company goal. Where do you want to go as a company? Because that's ultimately what matters. I can give you an example of an automotive company in Germany that became our customer recently. They said, we need to develop great software for the automotive industry. That's where we need to be to continue being successful. And we don't really even know right now what skills are needed for that, but we know that this is the way we want to go forward. And so then you sort of, once you have that goal in mind, well, first of all, you need support from your senior leadership, because if they are not standing behind any given learning project, I mean, why would people bother, right? I mean, we're talking about the daily grind, so it has to be relevant for them to study. It's not like we're just doing this for fun. There is a reason, because we want to develop as a company. We want to reach our company goals. That is why we are doing this learning program. And then basically you look at the different functions that you have. Is it IT? Is it management? Is it marketing that needs to develop? You can do all of them, of course, but you can be also very targeted at that. And then you look at your current capabilities and the capabilities that you think you will need in the future. And that is how a good development program is developed in our opinion. And I think that's my last slide. And with that, thank you very much.
Go sit down. Lucas, thank you for setting the scene. We know digital skills skills are changing. Digital skills are crucial for the organization, and we need to have a plan for where we get to. I love the last slide with the pyramid showing a way of doing that. If I think about the 2 points we had right at the end there, we're talking here about something that's very focused on the, if you like, the analytics, the head side of it. What about the heart side of it that we were talking about right at the end of the chat at the beginning? Once we've done that, I know Anke will be talking about celebrating success, and Meredith as well, but how do we celebrate the success and get people excited about this prospect of developing themselves and developing the organization? So it goes beyond being something that's right, being something that's exciting.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And I'm sorry, by the way, we don't prep these questions. He wasn't expecting this. He was probably expecting something really easy, so I'm sorry, Lucas.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So I think, communication, I guess, is one answer, right? You need to be constantly communicating with your learners. You need to celebrate successes in an open way, so people are proud of their accomplishments. And I think, one thing that we do that works quite well is provide certificates that people can put online, for example. So they get excited because they can, they can show a certificate from Michigan University on their profile. There is another, come to think about it, one of our customers, what they done is they did a competition between the BUs. So
BUs, business units.
business units, correct. They measured the learning hours between the BUs and sort of made a competition out of that. So which BU is winning the learning competition. And you know, for some people, competitions like that are huge motivators, so it worked for them.
And I love that idea that it's different for different people. Some people are, like you said, you have the 10% who are always going to be intrinsically motivated. For everybody else, there's always a good reason to, well, it's always a good reason to provide some sort of motivation extrinsically to help them along. Lucas, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's welcome up Meredith Wellard, Deutsche Post, DHL. Meredith.
Hi. Yep. All right, so hi everyone. Thanks, Lucas, for helping me understand what my scary question might be at the end. So I'm Meredith Wellard from Deutsche Post DHL, based in Bonn. I'm not German, and I am Australian. But I am here today to share a little bit of how what Lucas talked about sort of translates into a real organization, if that you have a real organization, but you know what I mean, one that I'm just going to be quiet. This is our organization. Hopefully you know Deutsche Post and or DHL. We have around 600,000 employees around the globe in every single country. And I share that with you because I think it's an important context for why we've approached learning the way that we have. We have a rather decentralized organization with 5 different business units. But there's something very important that we have, and that is a very clear strategy and direction. So our CEO, who's now on moving out of our organization, Frank Appel, a few years ago set up what we call our Strategy 2025, which is focused on this delivering excellence in a digital world. And the whole strategy of our organization is aligned behind this sort of group strategy, and everything that we do feeds back into this story. And I think that's an important point that also Lucas brought up, that learning without a connection to the strategy is never going to be the answer. I think one of the things that really makes learning work in an organization is that ability to describe exactly how and why it fits where it fits. And we're very fortunate in Deutsche Post DHL that we have an amazing purpose that almost is the perfect setup for learning. If you think about connecting people, improving lives, there are so many ways that I can feed learning into that particular statement, that in the end, and similarly our values, respect and results, delivering results without compromising on respect. These things are key to what we do in the learning space. So I think the other thing is the passion that comes from the people. I was thinking about a question that I've heard a few times since I've been here over the last couple of days. By the way, I love horror. So Dean Koontz is somebody that I read a lot. But I've stolen this statement to reflect my belief, because the question that people have asked quite often over the last couple of days is, how do we bring on board the reluctant senior management board or the reluctant CEO? And I think this is where we have a role as motivators and activators, right? We truly have to believe. And believe not in a, oh, if only they would do something differently, but believe in the fact that they are part of the challenge that we have to face. So our ability to be resilient and step into the office of, whoever you have to influence and say, let's talk about learning and how it's going to contribute to your success. This has to be something that we truly believe in our heart of hearts is the right thing to do. I always compare it to the e-commerce. So we were heavily impacted in a very positive way by e-commerce. However, a few years ago, DHL in particular was a company that was very focused on B2C. So on B2B. So we were not in the market of delivering, of having relationships with individual customers in terms of knocking on your door and, yes, you received the parcel, but the relationship we had was with the person you ordered that parcel from. And today, we now have a whole e-commerce setup that enables us to have relationships directly with individual customers. Now, the reason I tell you that story is when e-commerce first kicked off, everyone, all of the senior people said, It's not our core. It's not what we do. We don't do e-commerce. And somebody in the company, some e-commerce guru, was like, guys, I think you've got it wrong. You know, I think we've got to work on this e-commerce thing. And he didn't give up the moment that somebody said, no e-commerce for us. He kept going. He kept going. He kept going into offices and talking to people about how important e-commerce was, generating business cases, setting up examples, you know, attending and speaking at conferences, until eventually it became clear to the decision makers, to the strategy makers, that e-commerce has to be part of our format. And it's the same for learning. We can do the same for learning. One of the reasons I talk at these conferences is exactly because I love it when my name appears on our media watch statement that goes to the board, and they ring me and they go, what were you talking about? And I go, I was talking about learning, you know, this is an important thing for us. And they go, oh yes, you know. And then a few weeks later you hear, oh, Frank Apple was at a conference and he talked about how important learning is to Deutsche Post DHL. Like, yes, you know. He doesn't know why he's saying it, but he knows he should say it, so this is a really good thing, right? And this is what I mean, why I have this statement up here. If we truly believe, if we truly have the passion, don't blame anyone else, just keep trying to influence them in the right direction. Be resilient, be tough, you know, be that change, you know, what's the famous thing? Be the change you want to see thing. Okay. So part of the change that we've seen in our organisation, and that's driven, you know, some of our successes, we've won some great awards, a CIPD award. We also have been recognised as the world's greatest employer by Forbes, which is world's best employer, which is a big buzz, I think. But part of it is around this understanding that learning has changed, and I did like the slide that Lucas shows with the sort of 3 phases. We still have all 3, and I'll show you in a moment how they come together. But the shift that we've made intentionally, and how I get to have great discussions with the board these days, is around saying we no longer spray and pray. Right? That's how we describe the whole, just push it out there and hope that people pick it up. What we do is what we call precision learning now. So we use some of the technologies that are available on the market to push learning, the right learning at the right time to the right people. Right? So you, as an individual, only receive the learning that you need, the learning recommendations that you need. You still get a choice, by the way. So there's still a menu, but you, instead of getting offered 500 options based on a search you think you got right, and you're no expert on searches, now what you get is, you suggested that you needed to develop machine learning capabilities. Here are an entry level, an intermediate, and advanced level machine learning option for your development. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, and this is where I think the whole learning landscape has changed. Someone mentioned it, you know, bringing learning into everything, not leaving it just as a separate thing that stands alone. I head up an organisational unit that covers learning acquisition, internal talent, growth, young talent development, and our learning services. So that organisation has intentionally been built in order to break down those barriers between what we do with our employer brand in the external market and what we do with our 20-year-old employee who's actually in a retirement route right now. So all of that comes together so that we have a lot more visibility on the end-to-end employee experience, the pain points along that journey, and where learning can do things to improve the experience. So you see here what we talk about in terms of value, and our value contribution is around our talent acquisition, and we are at the moment working very hard to increase the amount of internal talent placement. A couple of years ago, we had about 50% of our internal roles, excluding frontline, because obviously we have a huge frontline workforce, but 50% of our internal roles were placed by our own people. So that meant our own people are actually our biggest employment market. So we had to look at that and we thought, if we did some things to upskill our own people, we could increase that number. It's cheaper, it's faster, they're already culturally aligned, they know our business. So we did a lot of activities around talent management and learning to increase the skill sets of our employees. And now today, the number is around 75% of internal roles are filled by internal people, and we are pushing that up towards 90. We really want that all employees in our company can have a cradle-to-grave experience. They could stay with it. Now, we have an unfair advantage on that, right? With all those people, 600,000, indeed, we can grow people that way. But I think other companies have that opportunity as well. Maybe they do have to let them go in order to bring them back with alumni programs and so forth. But really letting go of that idea that, ooh, we need fresh blood. You know, we need those skills that come with fresh blood. Sorry, that's not how it works anymore because the market is too tight. Focus heavily on skilling your people. It not only ensures that you have the right talents at the right time, it means they're engaged. Employees love it when they have a career path that they can work with. And it means that you're going to be future ready, so you can really implement skills initiatives that make you future ready. We don't do this manually. We have platforms, very sophisticated platforms with some of these great new algorithms in place to, I always say we have like an internal LinkedIn. Actually, it's a funny story because it started off at a management meeting where they said, you know, why don't we have a talent Tinder? And I was like, oh my God, like, there's so many things wrong with that statement, but but actually the concept does work, and so we use the tech to match our people with the skills that we need to direct to their desktop, offer them the next potential move that they might like to make. We call it an open marketplace or a career marketplace, and it adds immense value to the business. But at the core of it is learning, right? So none of that works. No career marketplace, no onboarding, no employer branding, storytelling, none of this works without the learning piece being in place underneath. And this is a sort of simplified version of our strategy, if you like. And it starts with, and covers, by the way, all of the 3 areas that Lucas mentioned. It starts with something that is largely classroom-based, which we call our certified program. This is across every country. It's in 41 languages. It is exactly the same no matter where you go. And it is facilitated by our own leaders and our own people. We have no external facilitators. But it is whole brain learning. It is high quality. It is completely standardized. And it's the one thing that we never stop, even in periods of EVIT protection. We really keep the certified program going. So the message to our employees is, you are the most important thing here. You are the one that we need to spend money on, even when money is tight. The second one is for the job that I do today. So, you know, I do need things for my job today. I need to know what skills I have to have in order to feel psychologically safe at work, in order to be physically safe at work, and in order to do my job well. Everyone wants to do a good job. This is where we sort of feed in a lot of our bite-sized, snackable, video-based learning. When you talk to your employees there and ask them, we tried to emulate the consumer market, and we asked them, if you're at home, how do you learn? What do you think the most common response was? It was YouTube. Everyone says it. Oh, I need to fix my dishwasher. I just look at YouTube, you know. So we've just emulated that. Said, okay, if that's how you do it at home, let's do it at work too. And we gave everyone an app for their phone that authenticates them into our organizational systems. Every single employee, every frontline, every person that works with us can have it. And they can then consume videos, snackable learning, some podcasts, things like that. Learning for the future of work, so this is a bit more pathway-based. So this is this intentional programs of intervention that we know are needed in order for people to be long-term successful. And the piece that is this skills-first learning is what we call our marketplace, or the career marketplace, which is 100% based on a skills ontology that we match with our reference jobs and employee profiles. So they create a profile of their own skills, and then based on that, we recommend learning that they need to close gaps for their career, for their next step, for whatever move they want to make. And that's where the precision learning piece fits in. When it all comes together, that's where we get the magic. So for me, I think, because I know this is really meant to be focused rather on digital learning, but I think you can't just do digital learning, right? It has to be a combination of all types of learning. If we really believe that learning in the flow of work, or learning for life, or human-centric learning, or employee-centric learning, whatever you want to call it, if we really believe that, then we have to enable learning in every place where the employee wants to learn, not keep learning in the realm of we do learning to you, right? It has to be coming from I consume learning that's available to me. I am the employee, I need to choose. And I think that's finally where I leave you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I love that. That follows on so well from Lucas, this idea that we've got the big picture, and now this is a great example of how it's actually being done. That's fantastic. Obviously, DHL has a way with words. I mean, Talent Tinder is one approach. But
Don't repeat that.
also, your job title, I think, is really interesting. This idea that you're VP Group for Talent Acquisition, Learning and Growth. And it's putting all those things together, as you said. Now, that, for me, reflects the whole view of DHL, that you've got a great organization that's behind people. How easy is it for other organizations that you see to try to do some of the stuff that you've done? And what tips would you give them to try to promote that sense that people are core to the business?
Yeah.
And if it's not there, can you change it?
Yep. Yes, is the answer. You can, absolutely. And I mentioned already, it starts with your passion to do it. So I think a couple of other key things is, you know, I learned quite a few years ago that the way we used to do learning delivery, where we would develop a concept, get a business case up, set up a project, develop a program, implement a program, and it was like 12 months of work and then tick and off you go. This doesn't work anymore. The mode that we have to be in now, whether you call it agile or whether you just call it moments of delivery, it doesn't matter, is just deliver something and talk about it and then deliver more. And if you make a mess of it, don't worry about it, just deliver something again, you know, and keep going. But the trick of all that delivery is not to deliver things in a kind of crazy spray of stuff. It has to be aligned. Like, it really has to be that you can tell the story between that high potential, if you still have high potential programs, let's say, that program that is a talent program for young talents, and that initiative, which is a digital transformation skilling program for senior talents, those have to be aligned. There has to be a connection there. And that connection can be as simple as reverse mentoring, or just the brand you use, or the stories you tell, or the systems you use, but always there has to be a connection. I think where we fail a lot in learning is that we have great learning professionals down our organizations who think it's the right thing to do something locally that's totally disconnected to everything else. And again, somebody mentioned it, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but they said sometimes we are our own worst enemies with the best intentions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that summing up, and I do a lot of work at the moment talking with CLOs, trying to work out what makes a great Chief Learning Officer. I think this is a great example of a combination of passion, execution, because you've just got to be able to do the job, and, if I can put it as boldly as that, vision, to understand that there is a strategy and you get everything aligned. Meredith, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Just one second, I'm going to introduce Anka. We've talked a lot so far about skills, the focus on skills, and quite rightly. We can't run organizations, we can't deliver what organizations need without skills. It's not the whole story, there is more to it as well. And what I want to do now is introduce Anka Iodake, who's going to talk to us about how we get people ready to learn, how we get people agile in their working and their thinking, ready to learn, ready to develop themselves, and ready to share and to spread knowledge throughout the organization as a skill in itself, if I can put it that way. Anka, over to you.
Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. First of all, I love that idea of Tinder learning. I'm thinking we can potentially build a new part of the learning organization, which will be exactly that. So there are lots of thoughts going through my head right now. I hope you're learning as much as I do. I'm hearing Meredith and Lucas for the first time, so I'm really excited. But this idea of learning being the matchmaker between people that want to learn and people that have something that they want to share, or between people and knowledge. So thank you for that. So I'm Anca Iordache. I'm originally from Romania. Do we have any Romanians in the room? Yay! Bună dimineața! I live in Switzerland at the moment, and I'm running a global role as future of work learning practice area for City. We, as a team, design solutions that support leaders and team reimagine the way that we learn and work. So I'm not going to speak about so much about technology. That's what we do. We reimagine the way that we learn and work. And when the topic was first presented to me, the first thought that came to mind was, how have I and how have my team supported the organization and the teams and the leaders become more adaptable? Because I think that's what we need. We need to become adaptable to what comes, and we've seen over the last 2 years that what comes is not always something that we can predict. So I like this image of birds swarm or birds murmuring, and there is a lot of knowledge, there is a collective knowledge that these birds are utilizing in staying on track. There is no one leader in that sense, but everyone is doing their individual action and actually utilizing the intelligence of the collective. So what I want to do is, I want to share with you a few examples of the work that we've done, that I've done at City, and then I'm really curious about your questions. But first of all, first time that I came to Online Educa was back in 2016. How many of you were here in 2016? Okay, a few. So at that time, I shared the stage with Sina, Brenda, and Jeff. And I have to say, for those of you that are new, first time at Online Educa, amazing. I really felt like at Disneyland when I first came. I don't know if you feel the same, but I wanted to do everything. I wanted to meet everybody. I wanted to go to all of the sessions, and it was really frustrating because I couldn't, and I needed to make some choices. I shared the stage with these 3 incredible individuals, and then afterwards I was able actually to go back to them and learn a lot from them and do some work together. Jeff, I don't know if Jeff is around, but Jeff really helped us ask the right questions when taking in, when doing intake needs. He has this little book, which is really incredible, about 20 questions L&D should ask. Brenda helped me really understand how we can form communities of practice in a large organization, and Sina is doing some incredible work around culture. So I'm saying that because there is so much knowledge around that you will be utilizing going forward, so it's a great decision to be here and to come back. But back then, I came to present something that is called Be More. Be More started with a challenge that we've got back in 2014. At that time, I was working for the regional EMEA organization, learning organization. The challenge was we must increase organizational learning, employee engagement, but pretty much it was about employees need to learn how to take control of their development. Or put it more bluntly, employees need to go to training, need to know what training is available and go to training. So at that time, we were able to break from this common response of building a catalog with all of our things and pushing people into training. Our approach was very much to remind people how we learn. And I'm saying remind because we all know how we learn. But it's not obvious. I think we've all been conditioned by this idea that there's a learning department that looks after your learning, and there are some experts that come in a classroom setting and deliver that content to you. So what happened was we introduced the 3 E's to the organization. the 3E framework: experience, exposure, education, learning, recognizing that learning is part of the fabric of our daily interactions. We've done that by gathering stories from employees, really asking them, how do you really learn? Exactly what you were saying, Meredith. Really encouraging some key behaviors in the way that people connect and engage with work: curiosity, empathy, and courage. And we've done that through a campaign called Be More and a 30-day development challenge. And I don't have time to go right now into details about this, but it was really shifting the way that we've done learning up to that moment. So leading with an action, following with the reflective questions, and then, in case you want to learn more, here's a piece of content, or here's an individual to speak with. We really shifted this understanding that learning needs classroom and learning needs content. What learning needs is curiosity, attention, connection, and reflection. And of course, like every change, things took time. So about 5 years later, we could see that the language is active in the organization. Leaders are using experience, exposure, education, and they're leading with action. So this was really important, and I know that 70-20-10 is a little bit of an expired term right now, it seems. But actually, what this did to us was that it really shifted the amount of requests that we got for training, because suddenly leaders realized that they have so many other tools to enable learning in the organization. So this was a shifting point for us. Then I got another challenge back in 2019. The challenge was very much about collaboration. And I'm sure some of you have this challenge as well. How do we enable more collaboration in our organization? But pretty much the idea that people need to know what other parts of the organization are doing, and especially if you're working in a global, large organization, that's really hard. But also knowing who are the expertise and knowing how to utilize that expertise. The solution would have been really interesting to go and actually design a set of training that teaches people what other products and function parts of the organizations are doing, and create a wiki with who are the experts and what they are doing. But we know that things change, and that by the time we would have developed a really smart solution, the content would have been obsolete. So my question was very much like, how might we move the mindset of working from really looking at it from an org chart perspective to really utilizing the intelligence of the social network that we have in the organization. And I know that's really difficult, and that's where my Tinder idea comes, because the most difficult thing is actually to match a knowledge with people and people with people at the point of need. So how do we do that? So I started, it was difficult. It wasn't an easy thing to sell, because people would come to me and they would ask me, how do I find people around here? So my question back to them was, how do you make yourself findable? How do you make your strength and your knowledge findable for the organization? The question was also, how does content become available to people? So to me, the question was, how do we enable the pool of knowledge when people need it, rather than the push of content? But I needed some more support to solve this challenge. So I went to this individual. Some of you may recognize Harold Jarshi. He's a workplace consultant. So I went to him and I presented my challenge. This was also somewhere in Germany in another conference. Magical things happen in conferences. But I presented my challenge, and then Harold said, you must make everyone's job to share what they learn. Now, how do we do that? So the answer was really sitting in this framework that Harold developed. I'm going to speak briefly on it. I don't think I'm going to speak it as well as Harold has developed it over time, but it's the idea of 6 and share. this framework that Harold refers to as breathing in and breathing out constantly. So breathing in knowledge and information, pausing and making sense of it, and then breathing out and sharing it into the open. So we filter knowledge as we take knowledge in. We create new knowledge, and then discern where and with whom we share it. And in seeking knowledge, we can use machine filters, or we can use human filters as well. Probably the network of experts is the most effective place to go when you have knowledge that you're unfamiliar with and you want different opinions. So I was speaking with Donald earlier that actually what's happening here in Online Educa is a beautiful example. So last night debate, I don't know how many of you have attended, but it's exactly that. It's bringing together a group of people that have different opinions around the subject, presenting that to the audience. And in the audience, what's happening is that you create more knowledge. You're actually listening to all of this diverse opinion. You're able to actually contextualize it, so bring it back to what does this mean for me, for the work that I'm doing, for the people that I'm working with, the organizations that I'm in. And then what happens? So then there is this process of sharing it. But we need to learn how to share it in a very effective way. Because sharing it at the wrong time, we may not actually have it listened. We may not have an audience for it. It may not come at the right time. So it's this thing about really collecting information, creating new information, and have it available so when need arises, you're able to actually share this at the right point. This translated in an experience, in a 6-week experience that we developed for our employees, which is called Working Smarter at City. And we've done that, again, through collecting a lot of internal stories, because we knew Six and Share is a framework, but it needs to be contextualized. We need to be able to make of it into the context of our organization. Currently, all of our new hires are invited to participate in this experience about 3 to 6 months after they've joined City. And what it does is that, first of all, it just creates a sense of belonging to a global organization. In the first months, you are getting accustomed to what is the job, what is my immediate team, but there is a need to understand that there is a large organization there. So that's the first thing that it does. And then the second thing is that, of course, it creates the sense of responsibility that learning is everyone's job. So it's not just one department, one team, one expert responsible for delivering learning in the organization. It's actually everyone's job. And everyone's job to actually make the organization more adaptable, work in more adaptable ways. The way that we went about this, first of all, as I said, we gather stories. We utilized bite-sized content. And I'm very sensitive to this in terms of not utilizing bite-sized learning. Because actually learning needs to expand. It needs to continue to be for longer periods of time. But bite-sized content is really important because it sparks creativity, it sparks curiosity in actually learning more. We emphasize practice and experimentation, so it's very much action-based. That's why it's over a period of 6 weeks. Every week you have actions that you need to do. It builds a group of facilitators and guides from people that are going through the program. So at the end of the program, you can actually raise your hand and say, I want to help other new hires be going through this, guide them in their experience, and then align it to the workflow and employee life cycle. So very much around learning needs to be part of something bigger. You can see the actions, some of the actions. If we would have more time, I would ask you to potentially do some of these actions. Like, first of all, clarify what is one topic that you're curious about, that you want to get smarter on. And then the next step is really to identify who in my network has that knowledge, or maybe who is not in my network right now but needs to be in my network. And then really sensing where is the content available. And this is the perfect place to do this because there is so diverse network around here that you can connect with around the topic. Add value, synthesize it, test it, debate it. That's part of the sense-making process. And then share it and really understanding when it's a good time to share. So you may ask, did this work? Did this create a more adaptable leaders, employees, organization in that sense? It works. Looking at and testing behaviors that we're looking to develop in this experience, we can really see an increase. We can really see people looking for divergent sources of information. We can see people getting more interested in building their networks. But what is more interesting is actually forming this skill, which is personal knowledge mastery. So people are going and connecting with others outside their immediate teams. They're going to social networks to feed their curiosity. They form communities of practice inside the organization that support learning and support that idea of how do I test what I learn. And they utilize their work teams to actually solve specific problems. In terms of Seek and Share for an L&D, and something that I've realized is that this is an approach that we actually use as learning consultants, as learning and HR advisors. The moment that a need is being expressed, we activate our curiosity. I think part of the conference was a lot about, how do we do that? What type of questions? What do I need to pay attention to in regards to my curiosity? So asking lots of questions, clarifying the need, and then going into Seek, asking who knows this in the organization? Where does the skill is already in practice? Who is doing this well? What are they doing exactly, and what are the practices they are applying? In terms of sense, really go and apply it with another group and see what happens. Observe, adjust, adapt. And then sharing the new learning created and spread the practices at organizational level. So you can really see how this is really applying to our work. But some of the insights that I want to share, I think there's two examples, so the 3 E's and the Seek and Share, they're really at the base of how we enable learning in organizations and how we distribute, again, learning in organization. What we need to do is model curiosity and model experimentation, teach people how to fish, that Chinese proverb about don't give people fish, teach them how to fish and they would live a long life. And make it simple for them to teach others as well. So again, that's why I have so many 3s and simple words that I'm attracted with. You need to make it simple for others to teach it back. Architect solutions that connect people with diverse networks and encourage this creation of communities of practice. We underestimate how much we actually gain by coming together as a group to solve challenges and then bringing diverse voices into a group. And know that knowledge is available, so that's not the question anymore. We don't need to create content. Knowledge is available, but it's highly distributed, especially in large organizations and in society. And anybody can help somebody else get better at something. So that's my insight from the work that I've been doing. Now I have another challenge. 2023. Here's my new challenge, and I already know some of the people that I will be working with or trying to understand more around this challenge. So helping people reach or helping people live their unlimited potential. Yes, people have unlimited potential. How do we bring that to life in organizations? Very much as a motivation factor as well, but also as a learning strategy. Help employees discover their career motivations and architect solutions for them to grow and develop their skills. So I'm in that seeking phase. Yeah, I'm looking for networks, I'm looking for content, I'm looking for best practices, and let's see what happens next. So that's for me. Thank you.
Don't sit down, just for a second. I have a hard question for you in a minute.
Ooh.
No, it's not very hard. Listen, we're going to be asking the panel questions in a second, so start thinking. But I want to say a big thank you to Anke, because I think that this combination of in order for us to be able to have learning strategically happening in organizations, then we've got to have the systems in place for it. But in addition, we have to have the people individually doing just what you've described, being motivated, going, seeking, learning and sharing, and that sharing bit is so important, and I thank you for describing that. Now, here's the hard question. More hard questions to come from the audience in a second, but my hard question is this one. You described the Working Smarter program, really liked it. You can observe the behaviors. People are looking for more divergent sources of knowledge. They're setting up communities of practice. They're doing what you want them to do. Is there any way, and it may not be possible, but is there any way of linking those behaviors to the business strategy? And saying, yeah, well, we can see that has an impact. Because I know that with Be More, you could show that eventually it was having an impact. Can you do it with Working Smarter?
Yes. And it's really interesting because, as I said, the first week in Working Smarter, it's all about introducing yourself to the community. And there are thousands of people going through this, so all of our quarterly new hires in that sense. And that's a first challenge, because you really have to speak about, who am I, which part of business I work in, and where I'm located, but actually what are my strengths and what are my challenges, what are my objectives. So when we ask people to do that, we already activate a little bit of, why are you here and what are you trying to solve, first of all. And then the second week, we ask people to get even more concrete about, if you have clarity around your challenge and your business challenge, and again, people in the program are coming at different seniority level. That's really interesting to actually bring people together that are managing directors, top of the organization, and actually associates. And we ask them, what do you want to learn about? And they start talking about, what they want to learn about. And that's when the really interesting match is happening, because I have the challenge, and now I'm getting into the space where I need to understand, to solve that challenge, what do I need to learn, or what do I need to bring into solving this challenge? We also give the option of people to actually speak about something that they want to learn that can be from their personal lives, because that's important as well. Because if I go through the program, the promise of the experience is that you will get smarter around that topic in 6 weeks. Just 6 weeks, 60 minutes per week, not more. But you will actually get through this process of 6 and share. And what's happening is that the moment that people get to apply 6 and share, they will know how to apply it with any skill, any topic that they find difficulties in. They know that they need to stop, really clarify, get curiosity activated, start seeking. The sense making is a difficult thing. We spend 2 weeks there because it's hard, and then share it.
And so the key question is, does it make a difference to the business?
It does make a difference to the business. We're actually following a lot of the stories. And people are being asked at the end of the 6 weeks to actually write a blog or hold a presentation around what they've learned. And that's where we see people like moving the needle in terms of the work.
And so we were talking earlier, and but I know I do the whole TV show, running into the audience, what do you think, this, that, and the other. But honestly, the feedback from those questions is so good at the beginning. Thank you so much for that. And we had your point about celebrating success. And that's exactly what we've got here, is people celebrating the success. That works for them. And it's also infectious. Other people get hold of it as well, don't they? Brilliant.
Yes.
Right, let's get some more great thoughts. Thank you so much, Anke. Let's get some more thoughts. Yes, go on, give it a round of applause. Thank you. Let's get some more questions from the audience. Anybody want to throw a question at our panel? I can keep asking hard questions. We've got one at the back. Let's go. We've got a microphone coming to you. If you've got questions, don't be shy. Get ready with your hand now, because we've got another microphone that can be run to you. Okay, we've got another question down here. Microphone, please. Yeah, go ahead at the back.
Really interesting discussion. I'm really curious to know, and I think maybe, Meredith, it's for you. We know that people who are already well qualified or have got a good education are more likely to learn. I imagine a lot of your workforce don't have huge numbers of qualifications. How have you successfully engaged and motivated people who maybe don't want to learn or have been put off learning from bad past experiences? What are your kind of insights into that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think where we've started is not doing learning to people, right? So why do we have to label something? The front, and you're largely talking about our frontline workforce who have other priorities in life, you know, who play in bands and you know, are artists, but they work for us for the money to pay the bills. The way that we do it is not to talk about the learning that they have to do, but to provide the resources that they need to do things like stay safe, be aware, connect with my colleagues. So this app that I mentioned, we call it Smart Connect. It has the most active part of that app is actually a sort of, it's not much more than a chat, you know, blog thing, and it's active not because we're putting things in there, but because they're all talking to each other, and they are learning from each other and asking each other questions a little bit, but we don't call it learning, because as soon as you label something learning, indeed, some people have this emotional reaction to, it's not my space. The other side of it is the certified program that I mentioned, which is, although it is learning and we bring them into a classroom, the experience is so learner-centric. It's comfortable, it's safe, it's not parental, it's very adult, and it's a nice experience. So again, even though informally that's learning, we don't make it feel as though, yes, you're going to learning. You have to register and get Works Council approval, and of course all that happens, but in the background. So. Yeah, it's just about making it feel safer, I guess, for them.
That's such a great answer, thank you. It is so true that there is pushback and there's a whole swathe of people who are removed from the benefits of learning as a result of an experience they've had in the past. Very often a substantial number of people. I love this answer, change the experience. All the research shows that once people have, even if they didn't enjoy school, once they've taken that first step, they then self-start and carry on. Go ahead, I've got one here, yes, and then we'll pass it behind you.
Related to the question about, you know, learning, being allergic to learning, there are also people allergic to sharing. These are the people that have a lot of knowledge in their head and they have this belief, like knowledge is power, and they keep it inside until they retire or leave the company. How do you encourage them to share?
Can I just ask, because I think it's a great question, does anybody else recognize this idea, allergic to sharing? Of knowledge? Yes, there's quite a few people, so a lot of people are going to value this answer, Anke. And I get other responses, Anke.
Yeah, so I think people could be allergic to sharing, or people could just be scared for sharing. I think this is such an underrated skill, the skill of writing and the skill of really conveying the right information, knowledge, whatever, through writing. So this is one of the skills that we're practicing in the program, because we realize you know, it's very important to practice and then get feedback on how you're doing it. And the underlying objective is actually to make tacit knowledge available, surface it in the organization, because as part of the program, you're being asked to actually go and speak with a lot of people and then put it out in the open. But the most effective way that I found about dealing with this type of behavior is actually to go back and really really spend some time on the why. Why would you share this? What's in it for you to actually share in the organization? Because there's so much, and actually capturing stories of people that have shared and received back feedback that they could really advance their thinking and innovate. There are stories of that in the organization. So being able to really surface those stories is one strategy in that sense.
So the stories are not just that, oh, you're good because you shared, but you shared and it actually helped you.
And this is what happened.
Yeah, and this is what happened and it helped you.
This is what happened for
develop
you,
your
for
ideas.
your team, and for the overall organization.
Meredith, you want to come?
Yeah, no, because it's a really interesting question, and I think it also applies to things like, you know, the managers that don't support learning, that, you know, there's always those people all around organizations that seem to be blocking what we want to achieve in some way, shape or form. I have a theory that at least I, and I've fallen into the trap in the past of trying to address those blockers. And actually what I've discovered is the better way is to, and it goes back to the celebration question, is to really celebrate and profile those that do it the way that benefits the organization. So that, and when you look at the numbers, often the blockers are so much fewer than the ones that are actually supportive. And over time, they just kind of disappear or self-select out or whatever. So, yeah.
Can we have a microphone over here with this gentleman with the glasses, then we'll come to pink coat. Lucas, did you want to come in on the sharing?
I think the answer goes for both of the questions that were asked, I think, and you said it very, very nicely. The understanding the why is so important, because once you do, let's say you have frontline workers who maybe want to move into other positions. If they understand that, you know, if they want to do that, they need to build up certain skills. Yeah. They will understand the why, they will do it. It's a different motivation. And then the same with people maybe blocking. If they understand why it is important that they shouldn't be doing that, that's how you hopefully
understanding the why. And from that, over time, building a culture where what was right in school, where we all are taught not to share anything, is no longer applicable at work. Thank you so much. Great question. Yes? You need a microphone?
Can you hear me? Okay. I have a question to Meredith for DHL. I have a very pragmatic question. When I remember well, you said you have 600,000 employees, and I really like to hear that you distribute to everyone. That means devices that they can really participate to this. What did you do to convince your management? Because this is a huge investment.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? Really 600,000 devices.
This is unbelievable, and I can say congratulations to this.
Yeah. I have to be really honest, COVID convinced them. No, but it is true, because we had the initiative in progress, slowly rolling this out, and some managers jumping on board and some not. And then COVID came, and our frontline workers still had to work and deliver parcels, and they were in unsafe situations, and they needed to know how to wear the protective gear, and we had no way to communicate to a bunch of them. And then it became critical that this access was provided so that we could keep them safe. So, yeah, leverage the opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. COVID convinced them. But you were ready to take advantage of the
We were ready to do it, yeah.
Exactly. Come on, give yourself some credit.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Yes, I have a question about, you said sharing is a skill, and people often don't have that skill. But I have the feeling very often it is a strategy, that some people have the, let's say, faulty mindset that they say, knowledge is power, giving away knowledge is giving away power. So how do you deal with that? Thank you.
So similar to Geraldine's question about sharing, this is a more, very precisely, I'm actively not going to share because this represents my power. Do we try to convince these people, or do we just ignore them and go around them?
I think it's shifting. I really think it's shifting in regards to the statement of knowledge is power, because. We can see that there is no scarcity of knowledge in that sense in this world, not anymore, not even in like really remote locations in that sense. And I think it's very comfortable for some people to be doing whatever they've been doing their whole life in that sense. And sometimes our role as learning and HR professional is potentially just show a mirror, just show, what's happening, and then indeed, reward that behaviors to make it very clear of what's accepted and what's not accepted around here. I think so much we've rewarded people that were, experts and really came in forward with lots of knowledge independently, individually. But I think the moment we can start reward different type of behaviors, I think that's when the shift can happen.
So it's a question of taking an active role in changing the culture specifically on this issue and saying this is acceptable, this is not, and we're going to reward this one and being clear about it.
And I feel sorry for those people because it is fear that's behind that. It's fear that I'm going to miss out on something or be disadvantaged. We have to give them something else to hold on to, I think, yeah.
I love that. Give them something else, possibly give them some status, give them some kudos. Okay, I like it. Let's have the microphone forward. Yes? Okay. And then we're going over to here, and then we got the front here. Okay.
Yeah, you talked about internal mobility and how you wanted to get the number up, Meredith, from 75% to 90%. I'm currently working as a consultant for an organization that has a very high number of people that have been staying there for a very long time, like 25 or 30 years. I also see the challenges of that, like people being reluctant to change, but also the cultures like, we've done it like this for years, stop coming up with new ideas. So my first question is, why would you want to go from 75% to 90%? Is it still added value for you? I know the tight market, but still. And the second question is, how do you deal with the agility of the people when they've been in the company for so long?
Yeah, it's a real, and that's the most common question I get about that target actually is. So it's firstly, it's a system, right? So there's no one single answer. There's a piece which is around how we drive our culture to focus on those aspects of our culture that are really beneficial to the future and minimize those aspects of our culture that are not helpful. So therefore we use a lot of the tools that are available in HR around what we call our leadership attributes and our performance cycles and things to really feed the focus towards the more future-oriented behavioral requirements. Yeah. So that's one aspect. The other aspect then is at an individual level, providing people with that awareness, so your mirror holding piece. So we've invested a lot more time and effort now in really providing people with 360 tools, with diagnostics that enable them to understand what they contribute, what their success is, but also where they have a dark side or a shadow side that they need to address. So that's more at the individual level. And then very clear messaging at a sort of corporate level around what our expectation is in terms of who we are as a company, our brand, our EVP, our way of leading, the stories that we can tell each other. And focusing on, and this I really believe in and answers a couple of questions, is focusing on what is right and celebrating that and trusting the process that what is wrong will disappear over time. You actually validate it if you give it a lot of attention. If you start labeling people as, yeah, that manager's the talent hoarder, and remove the things that make them a talent hoarder. Don't give them any validation and focus on those that do the right things. That's our approach anyway. And it takes a while, but it works.
I love that. By the way, this business thing's taking a while. I think it's worth noting. It's not going to happen overnight, but what a great answer. Thank you. Going to move on to over here.
Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. We're hearing a lot about the internal part of your work, but I have something else to ask. Future of jobs is pretty complicated, and I think we need to build it bottom up. You're doing a lot of jobs, a lot of work internally in the banking industry or like Post, and I saw work from Axel Springer about the future skills of a journalist. Did you thought about taking it to the outside and maybe even building credentials for the future banking or something around the Post, even maybe with the Lucas?
Sorry, can I just get clarity on the question? The question is about building qualifications or certifications that are...
You're already doing a lot of work internally about the future skills in your specific industry.
Right.
Are you going to take it maybe to the outside?
Okay, great.
Put it online?
And there's a lot of talk about skills credentialing, passporting skills across industries. Yeah, thank you.
I mean, we do, right? As an organization, that's sort of our business. We have roles that are from different kind of industries. We have different skill sets, how we call them, for different roles. So there are ready-made skill sets for different roles that are important in the market today from different industries. So if you're interested in that, you could set yourself on a sort of path to reach these skill sets. And this is from all kinds of industries and all kinds of roles. Could be marketing, could be management, could be tech roles, all different kinds.
I mean, we saw how popular the digital skills are that you're already servicing at the moment, and many of those are credentialed.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, fantastic.
And I think also there's, and maybe also a responsibility for all of us somehow is, we shouldn't, and it's not right in our big companies where we make a lot of money and have these easy lives, just focus on within our walls. We should be getting involved in, and there are lobby groups out there, and I earlier this week was in Rome working with what are the skills of the future required for Europe beyond borders, like, also some work we're doing with not-for-profit organisations in Africa to upskill the SME level people who want to set up small to medium enterprises and so forth. I think we have a responsibility to do that in our spare time. It feeds back, like it really comes back. The value of doing that is quite immense, actually. So.
Brilliant. Thank you, Meredith. Last question here.
Perfect, thank you. You talked a lot about how learning changed in your organization, and you also said, top management support is important. Could you also talk a little bit more about how this might have changed the role of your leaders, not only top management, or did it change the role at all?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think, I mentioned that we facilitate our cultural program internally, and leaders now, although we don't have a mandatory requirement, our leaders are expected to be facilitators, to be coaches, to provide feedback. And it's an expectation, not a written rule, but it definitely comes up in conversations when you hear people evaluating leadership capability and so forth, and they go, yeah, but this person's not involved, and da-da-da-da-da. So that's one side of it. I think the other side is we're seeing more and more, and also someone else mentioned it, that L&D, the big shift is in L&D, where this idea of L&D being the navel-gazing experts who can, by the way, we are the worst of the knowledge hoarders, I have to say. We are experts, right? And letting go of the learning and saying, actually, the best people to be involved in learning are the leaders and their peers and their colleagues, and together they learn a lot. And our job is to enable it through great programs like what you've implemented. That's the big shift for me, is that sort of decentralization of learning in the real sense.
Decentralization, which leads to the leaders, the managers, recognizing and being expected to play a role. We've got 1.5 minutes left. Thank you very much for that question. I think it is crucial. The leaders, the managers in the organization decide how people to spend their time. If they're not on board, if the culture doesn't support them, then we are never going to get anywhere. Thank you for that. Let's ask the final wrap-up question to our panel. Going to go right to left. Meredith, thank you. Lucas, going to ask you, we've had a great time. It's the second day of the conference. Everyone's going to go home buzzing. Monday morning, you get back to the office, your inbox is full. What do you do? Yes. What does everybody do Monday morning to kick off strategic learning and development? Meredith?
Did I have to go first?
Come on.
Okay, I would definitely start with a moment of self-reflection, saying, really look at yourself and ask yourself, am I the one that's starting that sort of chatter to myself that, it would all be fine if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for the blockers, if it wasn't for my leader, if it wasn't for the... Really, if you're doing that, you're spiraling. Stop and look at the one thing you can do.
I love it.
Best tool, circles of influence and concern from Covey. I know it's an old one, but it's a good one. Draw your circles and then work out what you can leverage.
Brilliant. Draw your circles. Anka.
I think we need to model the way that we want learning to happen in the organization. So the first thing I would do is I would also spend some time to reflect and reflect on something that you want to learn next, and then just visualize your network and consider, you know, who have I met at OEB that may be part of my network.
Fantastic. And Lucas?
I would say look at the roles that are critical to your organization and will be critical in the next years to come. And when you know these roles, think about the skills that are behind these roles, and try to build up these skill sets in the workforce. And if you have questions about it, you know, reach out to us.
I love
Fantastic. So we're going to go home. We're going to reflect. We're going to find the one thing we need to do. We're going to look at our networks, look at the skills that are critical for the organization, and of course give Lucas a phone call because he's desperate for it.
Yeah.
What a great panel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. All right. Time to wrap up now. It's break time. Thank you so much.